Spade back here with you, High Noon Leatherworks, for another leather adventure. And today we're going to start a new project. We're making a custom leather dog collar. So come on in and let's get started. Alright, I normally start off from scratch, and by that I mean take some measurements, kind of sketch out what I'm trying to make, and then make a pattern. Well, this time I was buying some stuff at the leather store, and I usually go to Tandy Leather, but I found this leather dog collar kit, and I thought, instead of me starting from scratch, it was very inexpensive. In fact, it was on clearance for like $2.25, so it was very inexpensive. So I grabbed it. I thought that might be a good project to try. So what I did was pick this up, and then I thought I'll just make my own pattern off of this kit, and then that way if I want to make several of these, or someone says, hey, I saw that dog collar you made for so-and-so, hey, can you make me one? So I can go back to this pattern that I'm going to trace, and then I'll have a pattern to make more of these off of. This is 3/4 inches wide, and it fits up to an 18-inch neck. That's a pretty good size dog. But it's customizable because the way they've made this kit with the rivets, you can cut this off on this end, the opposite end of the holes. You can cut this off anywhere you want it. So you could make it for a very small dog if you want. And that's what we're going to do. We're going to make it, this is actually for a little Shih Tzu, and so it's going to be a pretty small collar, and they've got 3 holes in this pattern. I'm probably going to add another hole down here toward the end, because they have probably 2.5 inches or so from the tip to the first hole. So I'll probably add another hole down here toward the rounded edge. So first thing I'm going to do is take my pattern material, which I use white poster board, and I'll take the long piece and I'm just going to trace that. And again, this is for a rough pattern. I know it's 3/4 inches wide, and this will give me an idea. I probably wouldn't even have to cut this pattern out of this poster board. I could just leave it drawn on here and just use it when I go to cut my material for another one. I'll just cut it 3/4 inches wide, and then I can lay it on here, and I'll know the exact length I want to start with. So there's my collar itself drawn out. Then I'll take the second part, which is the piece that rivets on the buckle and the D-ring to hook your leash to, and I'll actually draw this out and then mark where everything's at, so I can repeat that on another piece of leather. So I'll mark where the rivet holes are, where my slot is for my buckle. So there's the small piece with all the markings on it. So I can take this now and set it aside and come back to that anytime I want. I'll mark on here right inside of this piece. I'll actually mark on here leather dog collar, and I'll put 3/4 inch by 18 inch. So that way if I pick that up 3 months from now out of my patterns, I'll know what that is. Now again, I got to figure out how to set this up for a small dog, and obviously I do not have the dog here, so I'll have to look at the collar or the buckle, and you can buy these buckles and D-rings separately, and you can buy them online or you can buy them in the stores, leathercraft stores. But I'll take this, put it through the buckle, and that slot is for the stud, and I can fold that over so that goes on like so. Then I can put it on top of the actual collar. Now I can get a good idea how big this would be. In the first hole, that's pretty big. That's for a good sized dog right there. In the third hole, that's a little bit smaller, but I'm going to have to cut this down even further. So I'm going to try to get an idea on the smallest hole where I'd be, and I'm going to make it fairly small. So let's take that end out and let's pull it on top of the buckle so that I get an idea. Like there's at the smallest hole. That's pretty small. There's the next biggest hole. There's the next biggest hole. And then if I add one more hole, so that goes from probably about a 6-inch diameter, 5, 4, 3-inch. So probably for a pretty small dog. So maybe we'd want to go in the middle, that middle hole. Let's take about another inch. That seems to be about right. That way we can come back a little bit and make it bigger and not have so much of this sticking out. Now if we did have a lot of this sticking out when it fit the dog, we could always take our rounding tool and lop off a little bit more, an inch or whatever, and just refinish the edge, which is not going to be a huge problem. But now what I want to do is come back and mark this so I know where to cut that. So I'll take piece of leather, put it underneath my strap, and they've got this on this end. This is just squared off, so you don't need to use a rounding tool or anything like that. You just take a good sharp knife and just cut that off. So there you can see how much I cut off. Measure it real quick. 5.5 inches is what I ended up cutting off of there. Remember, I wanted to add another hole down here. These are 1 inch apart, so I'm going to add one more hole toward the end. I'll mark that with my stylus, 1 inch apart, or 1 inch away from that last hole, and it looks like it's probably about an 1/8 inch hole. So I've got an 1/8 inch punch here. Flatten that out just a little bit. Alright, so that gives me my extra hole down here toward the end. Now what I need to do is mark my holes on this end for my rivets. So I get my buckle piece set. I don't want it too tight up against there, but I don't want it super loose either. And then my D-ring's got to fit in between those two holes. So let's take my stylus and I'll push down through those holes onto my strap, and that tells me where to put my other holes so that they line up. Take my 1/8 inch punch, punch my holes. Now those holes should line up. With the small holes in the piece that wraps around. Now I got to be careful. I don't want to put my rivets in there before I get my D-ring in. Now here's the thing. This thing came with this tan natural color to it. So at this point I could go ahead and dye this any color I want, but I don't really think I want to dye it. I was going to think about dyeing it black, but I'm actually going to put the dog's name in here. So what I'm going to do, I've got some alphabet stamps. I'm going to pull those out, and these are small. They're probably 3/8 of an inch tall, the letters are, so it'd be perfect for this. But I want to find pretty much the center of this, and I'm going to go from the last hole that I put to put the buckle end in, and the first hole where you latch it. So that's 12 inches. So about 6 inches is where I'm going to put this, start this name. Um, and this dog's name is Eli. So it's just Ely. So it's not a lot of stamping. But I want to take my water, and this is just tap water with a sponge, and I want to case my leather. And by casing it, I'm just getting it moist, letting some of that water soak into that surface so that when I do my punching or my stamping, it's going to, that stamp image is going to stay in there. It's going to sink down in that leather. So get it moist, let it sit there until it starts coming back to natural color, and then we can start stamping. Now, let me double check my measurement. And these are pretty neat little stamp kits. You can get these online or at the Leathercraft stores. You can get them in all different sizes, different kinds of font styles. My next video, I'm going to go through all the basic tools and things that you would need to get started and where you can find those, and I'll give you all the links and everything to that. So as this comes back, it's already lightening up here where I'm going to start stamping. So I'll put that right in the middle and on that 6-inch line. And when you do this, you want to make sure that you hold down on that stamp. Do not let that bounce around, because it'll destroy your project pretty quickly. Let's go to the E. You notice I hit it more than once, so that's why I'm saying hold that down, firm pressure on this so it doesn't bounce on your leather. And Y. Alright. Put those letter stamps back, and you can see there's the name stamped in there. So it does a really good job. Again, you just want to make sure it doesn't bounce around on you. Now the next thing I want to do is I want to put a couple of these spots, these silver spots in there, kind of decorate it up just a little bit. So I am going to measure that again. So let's put 1 inch away from the E in the name. Put 1 inch away from the Y, the other direction. And then I'm not so sure. Yeah, let's go an inch away from that one. So I am putting a little mark with my stylus. That's where one of my holes will be. I'm not sure if these will punch through this leather. I'm going to try and see if it will. If it will, that'll make a much better fit. So I'll push down on that spot. It's got little prongs. It's got two prongs that are sharp. I don't know if you can see it. There you can see that one. So it's got two sharp prongs that goes through. Let's see if I can get it to go through without putting a pilot hole in there. And I gotta take a small pair of needle nose and kind of hold on to one of those prongs until I get it started. Now remember, I cased this leather, so it does make it softer. And I'm hitting it very, very lightly. And I'm going through into this other piece of leather, this scrap. And I want to try to make sure I don't hit my leather around that spot with my mallet. So if you hit it with the edge of your mallet, it's going to leave a mark there. Then I can turn that over, and you can use some type of punch to fold those over with. You could use a nail. I've got just a metal rod that I've saved from, I cut it off of something, so I can tap that over. I want to make sure I tap that over real good so that doesn't come out of there. And it's smooth. So there's one spot. I'll move on to the second one here. And if you got big fingers, this makes it a little difficult to do. So if you got a small set of needle nose or something, makes it a lot easier, kind of gives you an extra hand. Again, it's just to get it started. And I am going very easy, very light taps. Even with this plastic mallet, if you hit these very hard, you can actually smash the spot and make it flat. So you want to go very easy. And the more backing you have, the better off you are, because it'll let it push through the top, your actual piece of leather you're putting the spots on. And then you can kind of push over those prongs a little before you tap on them. Alright, so there's two of the spots. So we'll put the other two in over here, and then I'll be right back. Alright, so I've got all four of the spots in. They look good. Got the name in. Then we're ready to put this together. Let me get my setter. I need this for the rivets that came with the project. I gotta remember not to forget to put my D-ring in. So we're going to put the first rivet in the front toward the buckle. And these are probably 1/2 inch, they look like, because it's going through three sets of three thicknesses of leather. And this is probably, I'm going to guess it's probably 8 or 9 ounce. So it's pretty hardy. Alright, so there's the first one. Now, I don't want to forget, I'll take my D-ring, and that's the ring that's going to hold your leash. And put that in between the two rivets. Go ahead and set my buckle. There's the D-ring. Put the leash on. And there's the finished collar. And that's right now it's probably about 4.5 inches right there, and that's on the second hole. And I've got 2 more holes I can tighten that up on if I need to. But as I said, Eli is a Shih Tzu, so he's got a very small neck. He's a little dog. So he'll have his own custom collar. So you can do this pretty easy, pretty quick, because this was real time. So just check it out. I gave you the measurements on the leather. I did the long piece, started out 3/4 inches wide by 18 inches long. Then let me put this setter up real quick. I want to give you the dimensions for the small piece. I don't believe I did that. I think I just showed tracing it out. The dimensions for the small piece that had the slot in it and the rivet holes that holds the buckle and the D-ring, it is 5 1/4 inches long and 3/4 inches wide. So I'm going to mark that on there too. I'll just put 5 1/4 by 3/4. So the small piece is 5 1/4 by 3/4, and the long piece was 3/4 by 18 inches. And again, you can, depending on the size of the dog, you can change that length of that long piece, that 18-inch piece, because I took 4.5 inches or whatever, no, 5.5 inches off. So there's the finished dog collar project. Thanks for coming along for this leather adventure and seeing the dog collar project. Come back next week, and that's when I'm going to be going through some basic starter tools, where to find them, kind of give you an idea how much they might cost. So come on back next week and check that one out. That could be interesting for some of you that want to try to get into leatherworking. So I appreciate you watching, appreciate you coming along and following. Please, as I always say, like, share, and subscribe, and I'll see you next time.